All right, let's keep it there. The ongoing Japan-African Economic Summit. The Ghana President, John Mahama, has called for more work to be done by Africans in order to expand intra-Africa trade while calling for increased collaboration between Africa and Japan. President Mahama was speaking on a panel of top policymakers on the issue of private-public partnership, as well as key lessons from Ghana's recent economic and market reforms.
In the past times, it's like, oh, this sector is just about profit and all that. And so the public sector had tended to crowd out the private sector. Now everybody uses the hackneyed phrase that the private sector is the engine of growth. But how does an engine operate if you don't give it the right fuel, healthy fuel, engine oil, hydraulic oil for it to be able to operate properly? And so that's the role of the public sector. We must create policy that creates the framework for an enabling environment for the private sector to grow. The private sector is not Father Christmas. It will go where it can get a good rate of return on investment. And so it's government's duty to create the space for the public sector to exercise its creativity. And that is what we need to reorient the public sector to do. I was Minister of Communications in the early days when the tech, ICT sector was exploding. And people were coming home and asking for licenses to set up internet cafes. And if you saw our regulator and the conditions you had to meet and all that, I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, by the time you go through that list, you'll not be able to start anything. And so when I became minister, I said, but why license them? If you want to set up an internet cafe, why don't you just open it if you have the investment? And when we did, internet cafes exploded across the country. They didn't cause any harm. They didn't lead to any coup d'etat, nothing. When we're liberalizing our telecom space, they said, oh, telecom is so important. You cannot give it to the private sector. You know, it's sensitive. The CIA would listen into our conversations and all that. I mean, today, look at the telecom sector. It's contributing so much to the GDP of Africa's growth. So what we need to do is to create the right environment for the young people to thrive. We should not over-regulate. I met with the fintechs last year during the campaign, and I was asking them, what are your problems? And they said, over-regulation. Why don't you ease it up so that we can invest more? And so I think that we must not be too sensitive in guarding and trying to regulate and all that. We must create the space so that these young people can exercise their creative talents and contribute to sustainable growth in our countries. While we expect with our Japanese counterparts, there is also an obligation on us as leaders of Africa to create the kind of space that makes it possible. One, we need governance reform. We need to reduce corruption. We must have accountable governance. Our people must feel that their resources are being put to good use. We must make sure that our economies are stable and predictable, so that if a Japanese investor wants to come and invest or partner with the environment to be able to make that investment, and that he's able to repatriate his profit if he's able to make that profit. And so there's a lot that behoves on us as leadership to create the right platform in Africa.